Hi, welcome to What's the Word? I'm your host, Jaime McFaden, and I'm so excited to have you here. This podcast is about all things wellness. Each week, we will focus on a word of the day, and I interview some of the most inspirational people I know and share that inspiration with you. Join me, let's learn together on What's the Word.
This is the place where I belong.
Well, hello and welcome back to What's the Word? I'm your host, Jaime McFaden, and I am super pumped about this interview today. Just found out that who I'm interviewing is actually a fellow Greek like me, and we're going to get into that because I had to get a little help with pronouncing his last name. But he is a podcast host of the University of Adversity, which I have been so graciously a part of. He is about to release a book called Mastering Adversity that I cannot wait to read, and I'm certain will be a bestseller. And he has a beautiful website that I can't wait for you to get on. He interviews so many people across the board. His interviews are so in-depth, in detail, bringing honest truths to giving inspiration to anyone that listens about the tough stuff we go through and keeping it real. So without any further ado, I just want to welcome our guest today, Lance Essihos. Did I say it right?
Thank you. That was perfect. That was such an amazing intro. Thank you so much.
Oh, you are so wonderful. You are a ray of sunshine. I just get so excited. I mean, you're beautiful to look at, but you're also really beautiful inside. Yes, everyone, believe it or not. So whether you're listening or watching today, we are going to talk with Lance today about the word intuition, which intuition is one of my favorite words. It literally by definition means the ability to understand something without needing conscious reasoning. So can you just jump right in and let me know why you chose that word and what it means to you?
Yeah, I think it's such an undervalued word and skill that humans have access to.
Mm-hmm.
And intuition is connected to our heart, connected to our soul, and I believe that it's kind of the gateway to truth. And as I have been on my own journey of learning about myself and overcoming things and interviewing people, I just started to realize that one of the key factors is being able to tap into your intuition. It's like an innate inner knowing, like it's an inner wisdom that I believe we have. Whatever you believe as far as how we got here, religion or spirituality, it's fascinating to me to think about how there's a potential that there's this wisdom that we have that's been passed on from generations. And sometimes as I start to slow down and get more in tune with myself and my thoughts, I start to recognize this whisper. And the intuition is that whisper of truth that comes from your soul and your heart. And I just think it's very misunderstood. And I think that a lot of people kind of don't really understand it. So, and we don't really live in a society where it's encouraged. We kind of make decisions based on the external circumstances in front of us and how we're influenced. And I just think it's a very interesting word and very interesting skill. So yeah, I mean, there's so many places we could go with this. I love it because I'm just really I the more I talk about it, the more I'm like I get more curious about it.
100%. There's a part of it that you just said right now that it I think that it's going to resonate with so many people, including myself. And I just will say, like, I just recently moved. It's taken me 10 years to make a move to the beach, which is where my heart has always been. Like, it's never been. I was a flight attendant. I did all these things in my life to get myself to the beach. Okay. I never wanted to be home. It doesn't make sense. But my intuition always knew that. And now I've been saying the last few days since just moving in, I'm like, why did it take me so long? That whisper was talking to me this whole time, my whole life. And I finally did it. And I feel so much truth. So what would you say to someone listening right now going, okay, I want to start to hear what my intuition is saying? Because I will admit, I think we cloud it a lot with, like you said, what people are teaching us, what we've learned, what's been passed down. And sometimes it's hard to know what to push mute on and what to listen to. So how are you discovering to actually start tapping more into it?
Yeah, so it's a great question. And the more of the stories and the trauma and the difficulties we've been through in life, the more that it can cloud that aspect.
Mhm.
So as I've started to do the healing work on myself, and it's an ongoing journey, I've just realized that a lot of how I think and how I make decisions was based on the past of how something showed up before and how I was the emotion that came with that. So if something like that showed up now, I would use my judgment would be based on the past, basically.
Mhm. Mhm.
And when I start to heal that trauma or whatever I've gone through that's related to that emotion, then it almost like wipes it away and I don't get that attachment to that feeling. When something shows up and I need to make a decision, it's almost like a clear slate versus this like fogginess that shows up and I'm like, like what is true because I was hurt before doing this, so I don't know if this decision is going to lead me back to that or
Mhm.
there's a lot going on there. And what I've personally noticed is that when there's that you start to explore more of the um I'm trying to get away from using masculine and feminine words because there is a masculine and feminine. It's just for this conversation, it's easy to understand.
Mhm.
Masculine is very doing, right? The
Mhm.
doer. Feminine is the being, right? That's an
Mhm.
easy way to understand. So I found when I started to do more of the activities that are being, like
Mhm.
feeling into things like yoga, meditation, journaling, like contemplation, like just sitting there, not going from the one thing to the next thing to the next thing to the next thing, and just like asking myself what's true to me
Mhm.
and just slowing down and doing those things. And I have found that with a combination of doing a lot of the work, doing, whatever that work may be is different for everybody, then it starts to get clear and the whispers start to just get easier to distinguish between your ego and your truth, your soul.
Mhm.
And I really
Mhm.
believe that. And um it's not always easy, but there's also I have this little thing that I use and it might be useful for everybody. It's like a scale. I've talked about this a couple times where it's like 0 to 10 and there's these little nudges you get, these little whispers from the universe, God, whatever you believe. And some are very subtle and you don't really need to worry about them. It doesn't really matter. But then there's like those loud ones.
Mhm.
There's like those 9 or 10s out of tens where you're like, whoa, that's strong. Like I got that gut feeling, it's like visceral. You're like,
Mhm.
wow, I'm like feeling that. That's when you need to take action. You need to
Mhm.
figure out, okay, this is I'm feeling this.
Mhm.
And whatever you need to do, whether it's write it down or tell somebody, like feed into that. Because usually that is something that you need to pay attention to. And I
Mhm.
believe that if you ignore that because of fear or because of a story, then it's going to throw something in your way that is going to kindly remind you and ask you to pay attention. And it may get louder and louder until you pay attention.
Mhm.
So sometimes the intuition as well can sort of bring you uh, an obstacle where in the present moment it may feel like, wow, I don't want to do this. This
Right.
this sucks. Like adversity in the moment. But in order to get to the next level, you know that what's on the other side of that. So you're almost choosing it because of what it could do for you as far as like being in alignment with your like greater purpose or whatever,
Mhm.
which will eliminate a lot of the headache later. So I think it's I've been really unpacking it and even writing about it in my book because the more I talk about it, I'm like, man, this is such an interesting thing. And I'm curious to hear like what you think. What's your thoughts on it?
I mean, I feel you're hitting the nail on the head with what I feel in my gut as well. And I think oftentimes that whisper that we all at some point know and notice, we usually take, we're so busy in this world that we live in. And so taking a time to pause, to journal, to be our own philosopher about our own life and And actually do that is much more challenging in many ways than just the go, 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 right? The rat race we've gotten used to. And I think that peeling back that is so key, because oftentimes, I get my clients who come to me and they could have all the wealth, and they could have the perfect looking, home and life and this and that, but they're unhappy. And a lot of it is because they aren't listening to that intuition for themselves of what it is that they need. And so
Mm.
when they come to me and we actually go through it in a way of practicing better self-care, like literally dissecting, what does your spirit need? What does your, emotional need? What is your mental need? What is your physical need? And when people start to go through those things, oftentimes, and I see it every day in my career, it's fascinating how much we don't know about ourselves, that we've like shut that off in adulthood. Like I see my child, she knows, she's clear, she sees spirit. She is like, and for some reason, I it's sad that we condition that out of ourselves, and then we have to, go back to it with almost like a frying pan hitting us over the head, because the whispers oftentimes I feel like don't do it, right? So I want to ask you, because I'm certain that for those that are listening in my audience are going to go, okay, I want to know more about Lance. I want to know, like, how did you mastering adversity? You talk about some pretty deep stuff, and what has intuitively led you to start that podcast? Like, what in your life was the kind of whisper that was like, this is what you need to do?
Yeah. So when I started University of Adversity, it was at the end of some really crazy stuff. So prior to that, I was living a very reckless life that came from a very troubled teen years. Let's just say that. And it was very difficult. So my entire teen years was trying to process the craziness that was going on. And it led me into heavy drinking and basically creating this new human, this new persona that I got a lot of validation from.
Mm.
And it fed into my ability to escape from having to feel anything that I needed to feel. And I was getting rewarded for it. I did well in the bar industry, and I was able to travel the world and do a lot of amazing things. And I'm so grateful for all of it. But there was times that I felt that I was a bit lost,
Mm.
and it was a dark road because I'd spend some mornings after big nights, drugs, alcohol, and I'd be sitting there like ready, almost feeling like I'm going to have a heart attack in like a puddle of sweat. I can't get out of bed. I got bad anxiety, but just to the point of like, wow, I need to make a change right now. Like this shit cannot keep going on.
Mm.
And thank God I managed to make it through that. But there was a really dark time that I was going through, and that was around 2015. And where this all really unfolded was in the beginning of 2016, when actually my dad was visiting me for the first time in like 2.5 years in Australia. I had moved, I'd sold everything, I'd moved there. I was living, a fun, reckless life. And while I was at work, my dad was at home. We got the news that my younger brother had taken his own life. He was 18 years old. I was sitting there at work. I got a text message from my brother. You got to call home. He told me the news. And immediately I sat there in this, this awe of like, this doesn't happen. This doesn't happen to me. This happens in the movies. Like, you hear about the word suicide. It's so far off. It's like somebody else. That's not us. Right. And I had to process that because I couldn't believe it. And, you know, I went from there, basically told my work, I'm out of here. I gotta go. And then on the way home, I had to tell my dad. I was thinking in my head in this Uber ride, just picture sitting in an Uber and thinking about your dad at home, and you're gonna have to break the news to him about this. So I was like, all these scenarios are going on in my mind. I'm like, what's going to happen? Is he going to break down? Am I going to see my dad cry? Like all of this shit. And meanwhile, it's just like, I've never been through anything like this before. I've never had a loss like that. We did lose my grandparents and a bunch of people in like a very short period of time, but not like a younger brother or like a dad or a mom yet.
Mhm.
And so I got there and I told him the news, and it was horrible. And I could just see the shift in his face and his body. And it was like a defeated feeling and it was a sick feeling. And, it's imprinted into my brain today. And, we had just lost my grandpa, my grandma, two uncles, and my dad's good friend. So he had a lot of loss in a period of 5 or 6 years.
Mhm.
So it was almost like you could see it in his face that it was like, wow, okay. And I saw he turned right there. And we went, did all the things, got, buried and did all the funeral stuff. And then within just over a year, I was got another phone call and my brother's like, "Hey, dad's got 48 hours to live." So I got the call that my dad had stage 4 pancreatic cancer. This was like a year and a bit later. And I had to fly back again. And I basically had one day to deal with my dad, watching him go from coherent to not, pumping him full of drugs and everything, and just watching him basically die. So that was tough. And there is a point there where I was like, okay, maybe it's time I move home. Maybe it's time I move back from Australia, move back to Canada. Lost two people in my life, my dad, my younger brother, and things just started to tell me that there's a change that's gotta happen here. And thank God, 6 months prior to my dad passing, I had quit drinking for 6 months. You want to talk about an intuitive message? I believe that I was specifically told to quit drinking January 2017 because I knew what was coming. Like I knew the shit that I was going to have to deal with dealing with my dad. The stuff that you have to deal with bearing a parent is not fun. And so it was tough. So from there, after that, I went back to Australia. I was sober the rest of the month, the rest of the year, 2017. I just basically finished up my bar. I was running a bar at the Four Seasons in Sydney, and I was sober. And I just said, I can't do this anymore. This is not me. I don't want to run bars anymore. So
Mhm.
I figured out a way to get out of there. And I had a big, big intuitive pull. This was probably the biggest push from my intuition or pull from my intuition that I had, was to start this podcast. And it was so strong. There was nothing nobody could say to me that was going to get me to not do it. I was like, I don't care. I'm doing it. I hired whoever the hell there was at the time to help me. I just said, I don't care. I'm doing this. I'm going to do it. And that was what I did. I didn't care about, oh, well, there's lots of podcasts. Oh, well, Joe Rogan this or Lewis Howes. I don't care. I'm just doing it because I
Mhm.
had this feeling from interviewing and talking to thousands of people in the bar that this was something that I needed to do. And I needed to do this in a conscious environment because I loved connecting with people and talking to them. And I thought, what if I could do that in an environment and share my story with the world, help people understand who I am and what I'm about, and build from that. And that's what I did. So it's a long answer to to the question, but I think it has a lot of context to it because you know that sometimes we have this feeling that we're meant to do something more than what we're doing, but we ignore it and shut up. I got to do this because it pays the bills. And yes, we have to pay the bills, but we got to pay attention and really feed into that. Even if it's a small little bit every day, to start feeding into that thing that's coming from your soul, your intuition. And so that was the best decision I probably ever made because it's opened up so many opportunities and created my entire personal brand from it. So, and that's how it started, and that's why I did it. So, yeah.
Wow. Wow. I'm just like, can we all just take a breath here and honor you listening to that intuition and literally taking the adversity that you had to experience unwillingly, like it's just that is part of life is things that are out of our control. And that's why you genuinely have this ability to inspire so many and you inspire so many people. I think about you daily and I'm like, oh, I love what you're
Thank you.
doing. I feel so lucky to know you and to be in this playing field with you where we get to have these kind of conversations and we get to keep it real. And
Mm,
you know, similarly, for those that are listening right now, we are all, what Lance is saying is, we are all going to go through some really tough shit.
mhm.
And we don't know when it's going to happen, and we don't know how it's going to happen. And being able to tap into our intuition, because I agree in my own life, the greatest thing that ever happened, and the worst thing, when my dad died when I was 18, it was
Yeah.
some sudden and awful and changed everything. But it really did change my life because it changed the trajectory of where I was going completely and inspired me to live a completely different lifestyle and a completely different way. And so, as you can just see for those listening right now, like here's two of us talking about this that have both experienced different types of adversity in our lives. Um, but that we've been able to listen to that spiritual deep message
Mm,
to go and do something with it, right? Like, I mean,
mm,
I think that every day we have this choice of either being the victim or the victor of this moment. And it's not an ego driven, okay, I need to win. It's how can I, what is the message, right? Like
mhm.
what is that? So wow, I just thank you for sharing that. Thank you for your vulnerability and for, the courage to do it, because I am pretty sure that going from Sydney, top bar, Four Seasons, and then saying, all right, I'm going to change around my whole lifestyle. I'm certain there's probably been some obstacles along the way there, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's been the difference is on how I look at things now is just,
Mhm.
and this is what the whole part of me writing this book was, is to like help people change their perspective on what's in front of them. Because adversity is just a word and we give meaning to a word.
Mhm.
And I've noticed from interviewing amazing humans like yourself, people that have created a massive amount of success, a lot of it is their perspective on how they look at things in their language and what they give meaning to.
Mhm.
And they can either allow it to really knock them down, or they can use it, they can use it as a dance, like, oh, this is fun because it's coming, right? And it's really, what I've noticed is the people that really get it are the ones that are just, they have fun with it. Like, it's
Mhm.
there's a challenge here. Great. Well, what's usually on the other side of something that makes me kind of scared or uncomfortable? Usually some sort of reward, usually a leveling up, usually some sort of fulfilling moment.
Mhm.
So I think it's really getting conditioning ourselves to sort of not, I don't like to just say go out and seek, you know, adversity, but just realize like, man, if we're trying to do great things in life, there's going to be things that are going to challenge us. And, the loss of people in our life is going to happen. So I want to be able to give people practical tools that are just that I have used. I can only speak on myself and what I've, learned from interviewing over 350 something people is that a lot of them are similar tools.
Mhm.
It's just a matter of doing them consistently, like you do self-care tools. That stuff is so important because if you do them daily, it builds resilience, it builds
Mhm.
character, it builds belief, it builds all of the things.
Mhm.
If you don't do those things, then you wonder, well, why am I all over the place? Why don't I believe in myself? It's because you're not doing the things and the behaviors don't align with where you want to go. It's the simple things sometimes. And that's what I really have been working towards, is like just how do we help people and give them the right information the right way so that they actually want to make a different decision and go a little bit different today.
Mhm.
And that's really, I think, the point is, um as personally as I learn, I want to be able to share it with people. And for
Mhm.
me, I have to have these serious conversations. Like I have to be able to, like, it's what gives me fulfillment. It's like gives me joy. After these kind of conversations, it's what lights me up. I'm like, "Oh, yes,
Mhm.
I love that," you know? And
Mhm.
it's what it makes us human. We need more humanness,
Mhm.
especially now. And to just know people are like, hey, he's just like me, I'm just like you, perfect, I have permission now
Mhm.
to, like, say what I need to say or do what I need to do. Everybody's just looking for a permission slip, I feel like,
Yeah, yeah.
they
So,
already know
okay.
the answers, they have the
Well,
intuitive knowledge, right?
yes. And you just said something that I'm certain people are going to want to know because you said, okay, these tools, like I teach the self care tools, right? Through a system I've created where it's all about bringing self awareness to specific pillars of your health, right? And
Mm,
then we have a system, kind of like almost a checklist of like, okay, does this make me feel this way? 1 to 10. Da, 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 da. When it comes to mastering adversity, which now, let's be honest, you're kind of becoming a master. You are a master, and like you've kind of dialed that in. And I know it's a lifelong process. However, what would be a couple simple tips that you would say to someone listening right now who's going through the shit? That's not necessarily because I think you and I could both attest to this, and I'm always honest about it. Like I
mm,
experienced dark times, I experienced
mm,
depression, I experienced anxiety, I experienced moments in life where I didn't even care. I was like, what is this? I don't even know why I'm even here. What, all this. So, and how am I going to get through it? So I know because I talk to people when they tell me, Jamie, sometimes I don't even know if I have a purpose. I don't even know, like, I don't even know what, how I would even start to believe in myself because of this heartache or whatever else they've experienced. What would you be say like the few top kind of like
mm.
tangible action steps that someone that's listening right now that's really going through it? Because I will say my broadest, biggest audience is typically people who are going through a really, really tough time
Mm.
that have just experienced something really traumatic.
I love all of you listening. This is so good. We're all, we can all learn from each other so much. And what I like to say is, look, I fall off in my own life all the time. It's literally about overcoming ourselves every day,
Yeah.
you know? So I would just say, okay, if you're struggling, what does your day look like? Like what do you do on a daily basis? First of all, before we go run for, pharmaceuticals or anything like that, let's just look at our lives and say, okay, well, first of all, what am I eating? You know,
Hmm.
like what am I putting in my body? First of all, and take inventory of that. What am I watching? Am I watching um crime killer movies before bed, Netflix before bed? And then feeling anxious in the morning? Okay. Well, that's great. If but this is where we need to get super clear on what we do. What do
Hmm.
you put in your body? What do you watch? How's your sleep? Stuff that you talk about, like stuff that you help people with, right? But really, that's what it is. First of all, is understanding what are you doing? Like, do you have, are you hydrated? What kind of relationships do you have? Are the people around you, helping you, like, are they pulling you up or pulling you down? It's Are you doing something that you like to do? Like, do you go to work and like it? If not, okay. Are you working on or doing any activities that you enjoy that make you feel alive? And which activities do that? Like, which make you feel alive? And just having the full awareness of your life and just looking at areas that, hey, maybe eating McDonald's 3 times a week is getting in the way of my moods. Maybe that's why I feel down. Before you just throw away everything and tell yourself that you suck and this and that, just peel that away for a bit. Just pay
Hmm.
attention to those things. And first of all, like, most times if you can really be real with yourself and get rid of some of those bad habits, your life will improve. I'm saying this because I've had to do it myself. Why do I feel like shit this week? What have I been eating? Ah, okay. Have I been going to the gym? No. I've been sweating? No. Have I been hydrated? Have I been having like good conversations? Like, am I feeling inspired? All these things. And then there's always a reason why I'm not. Am I, was I drinking too much? Did I, getting in the habit of these like drinks every night? There's all this stuff has a cost. And
Mhm.
it's not about beating yourself up. But if you are feeling like you're stuck,
Mhm.
these things aren't going to help. Because
Yeah.
if you go and you're facing a difficult time, if you're hungover, if you're eating pizza and McDonald's every night, well, how you see that problem or the adversity is going to look so much harder. I know
Mhm.
because I've looked at things when I'm feeling hungover, you know, or like, and I'm like, oh man, this is so hard. My nervous system's all out of whack. It's because it's stuff I
Yeah.
can control. And you know, once you can do that, I know that's a bit of a long answer, but really just get real with ourselves first. And then second, give ourselves the time to sit with ourselves, which
Mhm.
is like get your thoughts on paper first off.
Mhm.
And really this, I speak about gratitude so much people are probably sick of it, but that's what
No.
I did. I grabbed the book The Magic. All these people, this entrepreneurial community grabbed the book The Magic. They said, do this. I thought that's ridiculous. I read the book, I did the practice, my life changed. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Gratitude changed my life. I started
Me
to
too.
see yeah, right? Like I started to see the opportunity, like the things, I don't know, my perspective started to change. I
I
became
think,
more
yeah,
optimistic and, you know?
it's well, you just said the
Yeah.
key word because it's all the perspective, right?
Yeah.
It's always going to come back to how we are viewing whatever it is that's in front of us. And there is not only one way to view it. And so
Yeah.
when we can take ourselves out of that for a moment, do some self-reflection, like you just said, like everything that Lance is saying right now. And I love this because of all the people that I've interviewed, of all the people on big entrepreneurs I've worked alongside, Richard Branson, Jillian Michaels, Dr. Dre, like these people who we as humans idolize for many different reasons because they've accomplished and done so many things and they still have joy and inspiration and all this. When I look at all this, the formula ends up being almost the same thing, whatever industry you're in, right? It's like
Yes.
you got to look at what you're doing. You got to
Yeah.
look in that mirror. You have to be able to, and you have to be able to look at it and meet yourself where you're at. Because
Mhm.
sometimes you're not going to, I mean, even me being, I've done fitness for so many years, all this, I didn't work out for like 2 weeks while I was moving. And quite frankly, like, did I feel as good? No, but it was just sometimes that's where we go, right? Like sometimes we
Yeah.
just have these, like, it's not always going to be, roses. But you have to have that
Yeah.
resilience. And I think those calluses get built up just like when you lift at the gym and you get calluses on your fingers.
Mhm.
The more that we do these simple, checking what we're eating, are we hydrated? Did we sleep? What are we watching? What are we listening to? Who are we around? Like they those are the things we can control. So that
Mhm.
when the waves crash into us and we have adversity, if we're doing those things and taking care of those things, like Lance is saying, chances are you're going to be able to ride the wave as
Mhm.
opposed to be crashed by it because you've been consuming McDonald's and drinking and taking whatever meds or whatever, whatever things you're doing to mask what's really going on. So
Yeah.
I'm really
Yeah.
thankful to hear that you brought that up because it is over and over. Everyone I interview, even like Jillian Michaels in her interview recently was like talking about reframing,
Yeah.
reframe, like you got to reframe the things that are going on in your mind because this is the part that's going to mess you up. If
Yeah.
you're not, if your mind's not right, everything's not going to be right.
Yeah. And, there's a big thing around um shame. There's no need to feel
Mhm.
shame around. You're just human, right? We're all
Yeah.
human, we make like big deal. You had like, so what? You don't need to feel shame around food and you shouldn't like it's like, but just be real. Be like,
Yeah.
pay attention. When do you feel great? Write it down. What did I do today?
Mhm.
Okay. And then like that's the thing. I believe that feeling shame around something is worse than the actual thing. Like the food that you make yourself feel guilty for is actually worse. It's just
Mhm.
at the end of the day, just be real with yourself,
Yeah.
like really, and like what you said, which is great, because if you do go off the gym for 2 weeks, at least you're like, oh wow, I want to make sure I'm working out. You don't know until you come off it for a bit.
Yeah.
That's how right? And the same with like when you eliminate foods, and I've done this in my own life. I'm like, how am I going to know if this food is affecting me? Then I have
Mhm.
to eliminate it for a while, see how I feel, and then when I put it back into my body, I'm like, whoa, okay. That's the only way you can know, right? Is when you stop doing even something that's great,
Right.
and then you do it again, you're like, okay, all
Yeah,
right.
for
You know,
sure,
and you
for
get to
sure.
know your state. You get to know what
Yeah.
gets you up, like what gets you to
Mhm.
that state. If you have the most important meeting in the world and you need to, with your biggest idol, and you need to be dialed in, like what are you going to do to get there? Like got to figure that out. That's different for everybody, right?
Okay, I wanna know now. What would you do? Biggest meeting
Oh
of your
man.
life tomorrow.
So I've been getting up and making like I do Dr. Joe Dispenza's meditations. It's become like religious to me. I have to do it. I get to do it. I love it. It programs me into the state I need to be. And I journal. And then I go move my body. I sweat. And bonus, if I can have a sauna, my life is just there's not much that will get me down if I have a sauna in my life. And currently, I'm living in Playa del Carmen in Mexico, and this gym has a sauna. So even
Oh.
if I don't have time to work out, I will go sweat my ass off. And I'm like, yes, like before this today, I was like, okay, I got time for a quick workout. Then I'm gonna go to the sauna. I'm gonna have a cold shower. I'm gonna be dialed, and I feel dialed in.
Oh,
And then just hammer water back. I love water. It's
yeah.
sometimes I don't even need as much food as long as I'm hydrated. And if that's those are the things. Like I got to connect with myself. I got to get the stuff on paper. I got to connect, and then I got to move, and then I just, man, I'm gonna crush this. That's the conversation I got to have. Like especially if I'm interviewing somebody that I really admire. I'm like, I got to be at that level. I got to
Yeah.
be. They got to know that I belong at the table. Otherwise,
Yep.
they're gonna feel it, right? So that's what I try and get to. And what about you? What's your go-to?
You're there, man. I love it. Mine's pretty similar. Get up.
Yeah.
I've got a moment of gratitude every morning. And similar to you, that changed my life, even to the point where I remember after I was so amped about discovering, the change of just having moments of gratitude every single morning over time really shifted my entire life. And I remember recently a really good friend of mine back in LA when I lived there, she goes, I used to make so much fun of you. And I talked crap about you, saying, "Oh, what's this stupid gratitude stuff?" Da, da, da. And she had told me, she goes, I have to admit, I was really depressed. I had high anxiety. I didn't even realize it. And then all these years later, she literally said, she goes, my husband and I do a gratitude practice every morning. And I think about you and I realize now. And so I love it because
It's
it's
amazing.
like, it's like how you said that with the shame thing. We could all sit and feel angry that we did this or we didn't do this or we're not this all that does none of that's going to do
No.
any good. And so I think that the other thing that we can all think, especially when it comes to intuition and adversity in general, is giving ourselves the love that we would give to our favorite people, the
Mhm.
love that we give to, for me, I have mostly, the parents, and it's like the love that you give your kids, your family members, your best friends, your spouse, like give yourself that love too, because if they were messing up, chances are you're not going to be like, oh, you're horrible, you're terrible. But we do that to ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And so just like Lance is saying, coming up with a few things for me, the gratitude practice in the morning, non negotiable, taking some deep breaths. And now I implement this with Sophia. And it's great because like you can see it as a parent, you can program these children very, very young.
Mm.
And it's beautiful and can be slightly scary because everything that you're doing, monkey see, monkey do. And so, the gratitude practice, some deep breath work,
Mm.
moving our body. We go so pretty much every day we go check sunrise because it's right, right
That's so
here. And
amazing.
and so going to like get that beautiful sunrise. And then yeah, just movement. And I agree with you, hydration. I think all of us could use a little extra water.
I think it's very undervalued, and I've been testing it with myself, just
Hmm.
because it sounds so simple, but sometimes these are the things that bring the best results, especially if we're drinking a a lot of caffeine, coffee,
Yeah.
tea. We,
Yeah.
we we underestimate how much water we need. You know, you're
Mhm.
sweating, you're doing things like I have found if I am making sure that I'm drinking a lot of water, it's hard to get me off my game. Like it's hard usually
Mhm.
when I'm getting that afternoon crankiness,
Yeah.
it's usually because I'm relying on too much caffeine and not enough water.
Mhm.
You know,
Totally.
when I start to like, slam the water versus going and getting another coffee, I'm like, okay, I'm glad I did that. You know, and that's the
Yeah.
awareness we need to have, right? For I think to be able to catch it in the moment, like, oh, okay,
Mhm.
right. And because like Tony Robbins talks about, this is where I learned about state management from was like the ability to be able to control your state and just
Mhm.
being able to know what gets you there. And that's really it. You want to be at that high state that, that's the high state is the same thing as, a high vibration or high
Yeah.
frequency. It's an infectious state. People want to gravitate towards that. And gratitude and love and joy, that's all very high level frequency. And it's measured, right? You can measure this. It's not just woo woo. You can
Yeah.
measure a person's frequency. That's why, I love Dr. Joe's work because you
Mhm.
literally can measure that. So why
Yeah.
wouldn't you want to be that as much as possible? Why wouldn't you want to start your day at that level, especially when you have to deal with people and you have to deal with all the things, right? Because
Yeah.
naturally the world is going to, come at you. And if you don't put that virtual body armor on that I like to call it, it's
Yeah.
sometimes it's going to knock you down.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, I love this. So as we wrap this up right now, I
Yeah.
want to know everything. I mean, you and I could continue on and
I
on and on,
know.
and I'm laughing because I'm like, oh my gosh, I normally have these at 30 minutes or less. But it's been just too much fun with you. So yeah, and I'm certain that everyone that's listening is like, yeah, it's all good. Um, so what are you most excited for in your life right now?
Such a good question. I've been working on so many projects and planting so many seeds. And my goal is just to be able to create things that are just able to impact a massive amount of people. Whether it's speaking or books or courses or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It has to
Mhm.
impact people. And I want to, whatever I can do with the skills that I've learned and whatever this life journey is up until this point, I want to be able to give back and help wherever I can because that's what gives me fulfillment. That's what I believe the whole point is to figure out and remember why we're here, the purpose, and then do our best to help others realize that too and to impact as many as we can. So I'm excited about that because I know this year is already a lot is going to be happening, a lot is going to be coming into fruition, and
Mhm.
I'm just so grateful to have these conversations with people like you, Jamie, because you're such a bright light, and I just feel so blessed every day that anybody's, listening or just to have these conversations is just what it's all about. So, yeah, I'm
Mhm.
I'm just excited for everything, and 2022 is on its way to be a massive year.
Yes, and your book, when is your book
Yeah.
coming out? When can we get your
So,
book?
Mastering Adversity is coming out. Hope so. I'm gonna say May 24th, but
Ooh, you're giving us a date?
well, I know
Woo-hoo.
I shouldn't say that.
It's okay, it's
So
okay, that's
delete
great.
backspace. No, I don't right now. How things are taking a little bit longer than expected
Yeah,
because it's quite the process,
yeah.
which has been that's a whole other podcast episode.
Mhm.
But so late spring is the goal,
Okay.
and yeah, and it's going to change a lot of lives. I'm confident with that. So I'd
I am
love,
I am also
yeah,
confident, and I can't wait to read it, and I can't wait to share it with my audience, and now your website is
lancesios.com. And
great.
from there you can check out University of Adversity. I would love to have you all come and listen to some episodes. I'm sure there's people in there that can help you out, including Jamie. You were on my summit too, which was
Oh, your
amazing.
summit.
University of Adversity
You did a
Summit.
podcast for at like
Yeah.
24/7 for 4 days or something. I don't
3
know. You
days.
did
Yeah,
not
that was
sleep. Yeah.
amazing.
It
So,
was wild. It was amazing.
yeah.
Well,
But
Lance,
yeah,
I can't wait for us to actually put something together because I just feel that that's kind of where
Absolutely.
our intuitive energy is flowing.
I agree
And yeah, I know
100%.
that that's going to happen maybe this year. We'll see. But thank you so
Yeah.
much for taking the time
Thank you.
for being on here on What's the Word and talking about just really listening to that intuition.
Yeah.
You just pumped me up. Like I'm gonna hit this and off, and then I'm going to stand up paddling because I have a little bit
Amazing.
of time while Sophia's with the babysitter. And I was like, that's what my intuition is like. Get outside, be in that. So thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you for the
Thank you.
inspiration.
And thank you for all you listeners out there. Appreciate you. And yeah, thank you so
Okay,
much.
well, we'll see you soon.
All right.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you for joining me here at What's the Word. Follow us on social media with the links on the screen, and don't forget to like and share with your friend. Your support helps us grow and continue to make inspirational content. See you next time on What's the Word.